All right, hey, what's up, everybody? Mike Lindsley back with you. It's an ML Sports Take here, brought to you by our great friends at Empower Federal Credit Union, Pellerin Contracting, and Bryant and Stratton College. Well, yesterday we lost a giant in the college basketball world and really the sports world in general. John Thompson Jr. dies in his late 70s. It's easy to say 596 career wins, College Basketball Hall of Fame, Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, three-time Big East Coach of the Year, National Championship Coach. It's easy to say all those things, but John Thompson made huge, impactful things happen in the college game, and in no particular order. We start with the launch of the Big East. We know that rivalries and major epic conferences, they're built on personalities, geographical placement, winning, passion, all those sorts of things. And boy, was John Thompson in the middle of all of that. Think about the big-time coaches when the Big East launched, from John Thompson to Raleigh Massimino to Jim Boeheim to P.J. Carlesimo to Lou Carnesecca to Rick Pitino. On and on and on and on it goes. Jim Calhoun in Connecticut. In the launch of the Big East with the TV deal, ESPN, Dave Gavitt, etc. John Thompson was a huge part of that. And of course, John Thompson got there, he created a culture at Georgetown. He created a way to play. Some people might have called it a little thuggish, a little bit on the dirty side defensively, etc. I call it smart. And if you look at the Georgetown defenses that played, that started to get integrated into the NBA in the late 80s and early 90s with the Pistons and the Bulls and some of these other teams that started to play really in-your-face defense and a lot of hand-checking and the like. That was going on at Georgetown in the early 1980s when the NBA was finally starting to launch from the Bird Magic era. John Thompson's defense was incredible. That's just the beginning of John Thompson's incredible impact. And, of course, he gets Patrick Ewing to Georgetown. Pearl Washington goes to Syracuse. Chris Mullin goes to St. John's. And Bob Boom, the Big East is off and running with the incredible players, the incredible coaches who recruited them, the TV deal, the new arenas like the Carrier Dome, etc., Dave Gavitt. Man, I mean, what an era. And I don't think I will ever pick a conference to top the Big East from the 1980s as my favorite conference of my lifetime. You look at John Thompson as well with the Prop 42. How about that situation? Incredible stuff. Remember, the NCAA said, no. You have to have pre-existing academic criteria in order to play college basketball. And John Thompson said, whoop, no way. He steps aside. He basically does his own boycott with it until they reform it so that you don't have to have pre-existing GPAs and pre-existing SAT scores. Prop 42 becomes a legendary thing in college basketball, and then all the other college coaches follow his lead. Georgetown also became an urban phenomenon, a social phenomenon, and a culture phenomenon across the country. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of black athletes went to Georgetown. A lot of black athletes were given a chance by John Thompson through the years. You look at Sleepy Floyd, you look at Allen Iverson, you look at Mutombo and Mourning and Patrick Ewing. They became a brand. Georgetown basketball and that Hoya, the Bulldog there. I know we've spent a lot of years trying to figure out what the hell a Hoya is in the first place, but that logo and that dark blue, like nasty, tough, rugged play led by a superstar in Ewing, it became not a global, but it became an urban phenomenon, a cultural, social phenomenon for young black athletes, young black players, basketball kids in urban areas, not just in Washington or Baltimore or New York City, but across the country. It was the same thing that basically Jim Boeheim always talked about when he recruited Pearl Washington. He was just Jim Boeheim, and then when he recruited Pearl Washington, he was in the LA airport really early in Pearl's time at Syracuse, and somebody walked by and he goes, "Oh, you're the guy who coaches Pearl. You're Pearl's coach. Welcome." So it was kind of the same deal with John Thompson, and then all of a sudden people started to love Georgetown almost before the same way that they did for the Fab Five in Michigan with the long baggy shorts, Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, and the rest of the crew, Jimmy King, Ray Jackson. You know the deal. With the Fab Five at Michigan, and so and Juwan Howard was the other one. So it was the same type deal with Georgetown. It was the same deal with the cultural, social impact, urban players. Looking at Patrick Ewing, look at John Thompson. He's the guy with the towel over the shoulder. He's going to make an impact. He's the big, bombastic, baritone voice guy who's 6'10" and 250, who's going to make a difference on the sideline in the game, sure, but off the floor, he's going to groom me as a man and get me out of this situation and give me a chance as a young young black man. John Thompson, there is nobody like him in college basketball, and there probably won't ever be. He set the tone. He set the tone from a discipline standpoint, from a culture standpoint, and a social standpoint. He built a winner. Georgetown, 1982, lose the final to North Carolina, but then in 1984, they go ahead and win it and beat Houston. 1985, of course, upset by the Villanova Ed Pinckney team and Raleigh Massimino holding the ball, an unbelievable field goal percentage in that game. John Thompson is an epic, all-time, iconic coach. And the final thing that I'll say about John Thompson is, look, people in Central New York, Syracuse fans, could not stand him. A lot of media people could not stand him as well. The Hoya paranoia, all the different things. He did it his own way. He intimidated you, etc. But deep down, he was a good man, and he was also a huge reason why Syracuse-Georgetown was why it was. And he said the same thing for years about Jimmy Boeheim and, of course, Pearl Washington and Ewing and the players and all the rest. But remember, the players, they come and go over the years. We can talk about Pearl Washington, but eventually he leaves Syracuse. We're in 2020. Jim Boeheim is still at Syracuse. Eventually Iverson left. Eventually Mutombo and Mourning and Ewing left, but John Thompson was still there. In fact, when John Thompson was done coaching basketball, he still had an office. It was making decisions for his son and others at Georgetown University. John Thompson helped build the Big East, but he helped build Syracuse and Georgetown for the rivalry. And Central New York basketball fans, you might have hated him. Manley Fieldhouse, Manley Fieldhouse is officially closed with the upset of number 2 Syracuse. You gotta hate him in the dome, throwing oranges at him, 30,000, etc. You can hate that uniform, hate the logo, hate the university, and hate John Thompson. But without John Thompson, Syracuse-Georgetown does not go in college basketball lore as literally the 1A to the 1 Duke, North Carolina, as a great rivalry. I mean, it's one of the 2 greatest rivalries in college basketball history, in my opinion, and John Thompson helped form that. R.I.P. JT Jr. He's going to be missed big time. ML Sports Take brought to you by Empower Federal Credit Union and Rosie's Corner. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.